Welcome to Amy Learns to Cook. I'm Eric, and on today's show, I'm going to make a pork roast. I haven't done one for quite a while. I made one when I first met Amy, and it turned out great, but she's not a fan of them, so I haven't done one since. But this is a really good recipe, and I'm excited to cook it, and I'm hoping to share it with you, and you'll like it as well. And also, this is a shout out to Zachary, one of our viewers, who requested a very tender pork roast recipe. So Zachary, I'm making this and I'm doing a shout out to you, so I hope you like it. So join me as I make Eric's pork roast. So with the pork roast, you can either salt it and pepper it generously, or in my case, I brined it last night for a couple of hours, and then I took it out and let it dry really good after I rinsed it off and everything. So that way we should get a good browning on it. But if you're not going to brine it, then salt and pepper it. I'm going to salt it to taste later. So right now, I'm just going to go ahead and put some pepper on this. Get them in there. Get that going and put that aside. So we're going to brown it on all four sides for about 3 or 4 minutes each. And while that's happening, we're going to go ahead and cut up some aromatics, just coarse cutting things. We got shallots, we got a lemon, we got some thyme, we got fennel. So we're going to have all kinds of good flavors in this thing, right? Okay, so it's been about 4 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to flip it over. Get a chance to brown. So now we're getting ready. We have 2 sides done now. We're getting ready to do a 3rd side. And we're just going to go ahead and hold that so it doesn't fall. Get ready to do another flip here. So now that that looks pretty good on that one side, let's go ahead and we're going to put this on a plate right now. And then we're going to clean out some of this grease from the cooking. Okay, and for the lemon, we're just going to quarter it. Nothing fancy. And the shallots I've already have peeled most of the outer side off. I just got to cut the ends off. And we're just going to go ahead and cut them in half lengthwise. So go do that. Cut this guy end off, cut that end off. Cut them lengthwise. So shallots are good. We have about, I don't know, for thyme, 6 sprigs or more, depending upon what your flavor is. And because we're just throwing it in the pan, we're not going to pull the leaves off. We're just going to throw the sprigs in as they are. And we also have fennel. So this big part up here, we're not going to use. That's not edible. So we're just going to go ahead and cut that off. We're going to go ahead and cut the base off here. And then these outside leaves, we're going to go ahead and peel those off. I already smell, it smells a lot like licorice right now. And then you have a core in here. We're just going to cut it kind of like a little V. We're going to do the same thing to the other side. And we're not going to chop this one finely For this, it's an aromatic, so we're just going to go and coarse cut it into like 3/4 inch thick strips. So we're just going to go ahead and do something like that maybe. So now that I've wiped out the pan of all the grease from the meat, I'm going to go and put the meat back in. We're putting it in fat side up. And now I'm going to go ahead and put the aromatics in. So here's our fennel. Just sprinkle it around, right, on different sides. Put that in there. I'm going to put in some of our thyme. Got our shallots here. Put those guys in there. Going to get our lemon in here. And then we're just going to go ahead and salt and pepper the aromatics liberally. So I've got salt and pepper in here. I'm just using kosher salt. So we have a temperature probe so we can monitor the meat as we throw this in the oven. Even though we're going to cook it for about 30 minutes, we want to cook it to about 150 degrees. Well, actually, 150, 155, somewhere in that range. We've already preheated the oven to 425 degrees. Yeah, put this in here. About the center of the rack. And it should cook for about 30 minutes, but we're going to cook it until it reaches the temperature of about 150, 155. And then we'll pull it out and then we'll let it rest. And then we'll rip into it. Okay, the alarm just went off at 155 degrees, so we're going to go and pull it out, and then we're just going to let it rest for, maybe 10 minutes or so for it to come up. So it really smells great with all that thyme and all these other aromatics in here. So we're just going to sit right there for a moment. Okay, so now we're going to take the roast out of the pan, and we're just going to go ahead and put it on the cutting board where we're going to let it rest for maybe 10 minutes so the juices can do what they got to do, right? And I cooked this to 155. By the time I took it out, it was close to 160. It was just under 160. So it should come up a few more degrees. And then it'll be fine. If you have a thick skillet, you can undercook the meat and then let it finish cooking in the skillet. Or if you have a thinner pan, you can bring it closer to 160, such as 155. And then pull it out and let it come up the extra couple degrees that way. That way you can serve it faster. But you always want to let your meat rest at least 10 minutes so that way the juices can redistribute. Otherwise, when you cut it, the juice is going to come out and then the meat's going to be dry. So we're going to let it rest and we should be good. Now that the pork's had a chance to rest, it's ready to slice it and dig in, right? Let's go ahead and this thing's like really juicy. So we got a few pieces of our fennel here. We got some shallots, which are just falling apart. Got the lemon. Some more fennel. Don't need the thyme. And here's some lemon. ready to take a bite. So now that this is all ready to eat, I'm just going to go ahead and dabble this in a little bit of the gravy, just for extra flavor, right? Because we can. So let me go ahead and take a small slice here. And this is tender, and it's juicy, it's flavorful. The brine, I think, gave it a good amount of salt without making it overpowered. The pepper, but the aromatics all kick in a bunch of flavor. This is really good. If you get a piece with just a little bit of the fat, that just kicks in more flavor. So I really give this recipe a thumbs up. This was just basically about 2.5 pound pork roast. It wasn't the tenderloin. This is just a regular pork roast. I went ahead and did a brine for a couple of hours, and then made sure that after I rinsed it off, I made it sure it was really dry. I left it in the refrigerator for several hours so it could air dry. And then we had the skillet at a high temp so it could get a good brown on it. Threw it in the oven to finish it off, and then we let it rest for just a few minutes just to bring the temp up a little bit and let the juices redistribute. And this is great. It has flavor. It's tender. This is great. Unfortunately, Amy doesn't really eat much pork, especially a big piece of meat, so I'm going to have this all to myself. But for anybody else, I really recommend this recipe. I give a thumbs up myself. These shallots are like really tender. They just fall apart in your mouth like that. And fennel, it's like a root vegetable, but in that pan it just cooks. It's really tender. It absorbs all the flavor from the gravy. We of course hit it with some salt and pepper, but it's a ton of flavor. That's all I can say. So the lemon adds just a little bit of acidity to it, which is, I think, probably really important to balance flavors, right? And this stuff's great. I can eat this all day. If you enjoy this recipe, then please give us a like and subscribe. And also visit us at amylearnstocook.com. And we're on Pinterest and Twitter at Amy Learns to Cook.